Hi friends, it's Victor Costa and welcome to the Daily Lift. I hope you're having an outstanding day and I hope today's podcast makes it even better for you. Just last night, someone was coming down the street toward me and I was feeling somewhat uneasy about their energy. They were talking aloud to themselves, not appearing to be on a telephone or had their earbuds in, so I could tell that they were talking to be recognized, to be relevant, to be heard. And turns out there were lyrics to a song. And as this person walked toward me, they walked right up to me and started to say several of the lyrics very close to my face. Although the person had their hands in their pockets, it was somewhat disturbing to a degree, but not disturbing enough to feel like I was in the imminent danger, that I was completely safe and in control. But part of me, the pride part of me, wanted to lash out in spite of not feeling really threatened physically, just being sort of annoyed and a feeling of how dare they do this to me came over me. And that feeling was very, very palatable. It didn't feel good, you know. I had already made peace with the confrontation, if you will. I knew that I was safe, I was secure, and there was really not much else to do. But I had a choice. I had a choice to behave in a way that would either escalate the interaction or diffuse the interaction. Just by walking away would have done the diffusion, would have been a very easy way to just turn and keep going. No big deal. Interaction is over. But there's a part of us, and there's a part of me that I can recall as a younger man wrestling with, and that part is the pride. That part is the part of it that gets us in trouble and escalates that really minor interaction into a police report that results in someone getting hurt or someone getting incarcerated or someone feeling horrible or someone getting sued or someone having to explain these things to themselves and their families. So there's that part of us that sometimes wrestles with that pride part that we struggle with, especially as men. We sort of wonder, in retrospect, if there was any cowardice involved, you know. And we tend to struggle with that much longer after the sense of what that person was saying is over, long after we have forgotten their face. That sense of feeling as though we may have been able to avail ourselves of an opportunity to express courage. And we question ourselves. Sometimes we question our manhood. We sometimes question our entire history and how we approach things. And that one interaction can work its way into your psyche to the extent where you kind of sometimes relive it and think, I should have, and we've heard many friends, or especially in a bravado moment, I should have just knocked his block off, or I should have, or I should have, or I should have, because they're getting amped up about the transaction long after, years, in fact, decades sometimes, after it's happened because they haven't made peace with walking away. And I can tell you that most of these interactions that begin this way are because people want to, quote unquote, be relevant. They want to be recognized, and it's not personal. And we have to remember that. We have to remember that in a lot of physical confrontations and a lot of fights that do end in police reports and gunshots and stab wounds and surgeries and calls to family members and insurance companies and lawyers and all that stuff usually begins from a level of pride, from someone not being able to wrestle with that side of themselves, the side that has judgment and can overrule the understanding or the debate whether or not we're being courageous or cowardice. And that's something that a lot of men have to wrestle with long after the interaction. They get stressed about it, they think about it, they even get fired up and raise their blood pressure afterwards. But I want to give you some tools and remind you about the good decision you can make by simply walking away. There's another way to completely deal with these situations, and sometimes it's just by, if you feel, recognizing that the other person has a need, and that need is going to be fulfilled by someone, right? Usually it's a person who is innocent, right, to an extent, and that need to feel relevant or important or to feel macho or to feel strong can sometimes be had by the perpetrator when the other person seems or appears to be docile, right? So the two things kind of attract each other. And I want to remind you that there is no thing that doesn't have an attractor, so to speak. I attracted that individual last night by virtue of my calm demeanor, by virtue of how centered I was. There's a good chance that if I were talking to myself and screaming in the street and hitting street signs, that there's a good chance that that person would have spotted me and said, I'm not messing around with that person. But we attract each other, right, in this world. And it's how we interact and how we decide we're going to act that's going to make all the difference for ourselves, for our safety, and for our fellow man. It would have made no sense for me to get into a physical confrontation with this person because that never feels good for anyone. The blood pressure, the adrenaline, the damaged body afterwards, the shame of having to feel that way, that you even hurt another person is damaging to the psyche and the soul. We're not meant to do that to one another. It's not a natural state, and that's why you feel so out of whack when something like that happens. So I want to remind you that when you are walking away from an interaction of that sort, or even someone testing you or trying to fight with you, remember they want to feel relevant, and you are the means by which they are going to feel that way. And you've attracted them by either acting in a similar way, a confrontational way, or by acting completely calm. And it's remember that both of those things are important to recognize, that we attract each other, and it's how we're going to act that's going to make the difference. And I want you to know and recognize that common sense and having to be able to follow a thread of how things are going to go is not cowardice. And I don't want you to wrestle with that anymore if that's something that you've been wrestling with, that you've walked away from a fight or you've walked away from a taunt and it still bothers you. I want you to let that go, because that is like reliving the interaction over and over and over. And it is not an act of cowardice. It is an act of common sense that we all need. We need people like you, if you have walked away from a fight, to continue to walk away, in order to preserve yourself, to preserve your livelihood, to preserve your health, to preserve your wealth, to preserve a decent society, right? And if enough of us walk away and enough of us are able to remain calm, perhaps the perpetrators may learn by example, and especially those who are not violent, right, really, but who are just looking to make a statement, have a scuffle, be heard. You know the difference between real danger, right, and those things that people are just in a weird sort of way, in an awkward way, connecting with you and reaching out to you. If you look at it that way, you'll feel much, much better. It'll be much easier to walk away from what could be an interaction that doesn't end well. I hope that this podcast make some sense to you. And I hope that if you are one of those folks that has questioned your manhood or has questioned whether or not walking away was an act of cowardice, please don't. It's an act of kindness. It's an act of intelligence. It's an act that should be emulated, especially for those when you are not really in danger and you know the difference, right? So let's learn to let things go. Let's learn to continue to have a good day. Let's spend the rest of the day and the rest of the afternoon relaxed. If something like this happens to us, understanding that the other person in a weird sort of way was reaching out and we attracted them. I hope you enjoyed the podcast. Please enjoy the rest of your day. Victor Costa signing off for the Daily Lift.